Welcome, everyone. My name is Amber Fornacieri. I am part of the Professional Development Network here to educate and spread the news about effective ways to serve students with low or no technology access. We're so glad to have you here. Before we get too far into the content, let me give you a few housekeeping notes. You have been muted. So please communicate with the presenters and our other PDN staff who are also on the line ready to answer your questions through the question feature. This is a great way to get any small questions, or if you're having a technology difficulty, to get some help. So please use the question feature today as needed. A reminder for your basic troubleshooting is that if you lose your audio or video connection, try exiting and entering again. Just like powering on and off a device, it resets the system, and sometimes your settings all of a sudden magically appear the way you need them. So hopefully that will help you throughout this webinar. And again, use that question feature as needed. You can also access the webinar through the phone, and Miley has just put that into the chat feature and the question feature for you. So if at some point you lose a connection and you need to access it through the phone, there are directions in the question box. We are here to support you, just like this wooden hand is supporting this tree that's just about falling over. To keep apprised of all the upcoming distance learning opportunities, you should visit excellenceinadulted.com. This is where we're going to refer you to many different resources throughout the webinar today. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at ILADEDPDN. And we will be continuing conversations through social media coming up here soon, as well as on the Excellence site. All of our archived webinars, as well as PDF slides to accompany them, can be found at Excellence in Adult Ed as recordings on the website. Also, we have other resources that we'll review towards the end of the webinar available there. One of our newest resources that we are just so excited to offer for you is our mentoring and coaching. We know that as the 9 or 10 of us on the PDN, we can't service the thousands of instructors in the state one-on-one, but we have some excellent staff that have volunteered and reached out in this time of need to help those instructors that are still making this leap to distance learning. So if you're interested in mentoring, or you're interested in coaching, whether as being a volunteer or you need the mentoring and coaching, we have it for you. And the Excellence in Adult Ed website is the place that you will find more information on that. One of the last resources I'll speak about before we get into our content today is the top 10 resource list. This is a collaboration between the 3 PD centers to give you a top 10. We know that you're being flooded with all of the different things that you can access and use for your students. We wanted to give you a condensed list of the top 10 things that you can get started with right now. And this is available again on the excellenceinadulted.com website. It offers a lot of different choices for you to filter, and offers instructors a resource for just about everything. So if you need any help with any of these resources, there's a dedicated Professional Development Network team member that can help you get connected with someone who knows these resources like the back of their hand. So again, we are here to support you, and we want you to know that. And as we get into the content today, if you have questions that come up, please feel free to email us or go to that website. You can find our contact information there.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Laura Sherwood, and I am also with the Illinois PDN. And we're going to start today by looking at this quote from an NPR blog post titled Panicagogy, Teaching Online Classes During the Coronavirus Pandemic from March 19th. That was almost 3 weeks ago, and even though so many things are changing on a daily basis, this still holds true. We need to remember that our students' lives have been turned upside down also. They're trying to manage family responsibilities like having children home all day and overseeing their schoolwork. Maybe they're working themselves and feeling very uneasy about their own health and safety, or trying to collect unemployment and just make ends meet. Their adult ed class is not their highest priority right now, but we can still try to connect with them and keep a sense of community that they had when classes met in person. And we can do some things to continue their learning depending on what they have available. If you haven't done so already, contact them and ask them, do they want to continue? What do they have time for? Maybe a phone call once or twice a week, emails and assignments, or maybe Zoom meetings. So the first thing that you want to do is find out, what does each of your students have available? Do they have a computer at home? Do they have Wi-Fi at home? Most have cell phones or smartphones, but do they have a limit on the number of text messages, minutes, or data on their plan? A lot of us have plans with unlimited talk and unlimited text, but not everyone. Do you have a current phone number for them where you can call them? Or can they go somewhere to get Wi-Fi access? Or do they simply have snail mail? And then do you have their addresses? And if not, can you get them from your program?
We'd love to encourage you to not only find out what your students have available to them, but if they're interested in getting access beyond what they already have. Sometimes the answer is no, and we totally understand that. The student can only do what they have in front of them. But we encourage you to listen with an open mind today. Think, if this resource doesn't work for my student, is there something else that will work for my student? So to help students get access, there are some free or low-cost services out there. Some of these you may have heard about, some of these might be new to you. First of all, to get internet access, a great website to start with is everyoneon.org. Another one is Comcast, and there are many internet companies that are also offering limited or low-cost options for internet right now in the middle of this crisis we're facing. Another option is to use the computer. Maybe a student doesn't have anything out of a smartphone, but would like access to a computer or a device. Many public libraries, as well as community college libraries, are offering device rentals. This may or may not be an option for your student, but it might be worth looking into just for them. The other resource I'd love to point out to you is the proliteracy.org/health list. This is a list that we could probably spend an hour just talking about what's on this list, but it's a great resource for all of the tools available for distance learning and also what's available for getting students access. There's more than just everyoneon.org and Comcast, and this is a one resource where it lists all of it all at once, and we want to point you to this resource. For those of you just joining us or getting on, a housekeeping note, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the excellenceandadulted.com website, as well as the interactive PDF slides. So this link will be available as a clickable link on the PDF slides for you. Another option to help students get access is to use mobile hotspots. Some of you may or may not be familiar with these, but these are small devices that allow students to connect to the internet through their phone. And so some of these are also being rented by community colleges or by libraries or non-for-profit organizations to help students get on the internet and succeed with their distance learning. So we've offered you a few sources to help your students get online, but what if that's not the case? What if they still aren't on the internet, right? Let's offer you a few suggestions to help you serve your students the best that we can.
So let's see what we can do for students who do not have technology available, like a computer or Wi-Fi, but they do have a phone and they do get mail. In this case, an instructor can prepare a lesson and send by snail mail. For example, you could send a reading passage with questions from a site like ReadWorks or Common Lit. The student then would complete the lesson and talk with the instructor over the phone. The instructor chooses another passage and sends by snail mail, then follows up with a phone call. Or do the students have a workbook at home and the instructor can make a phone call or send a text message to assign pages and then follow up with a phone call? Can your cell phone do a conference call without an app with a small group of students so you could have a discussion? iPhones can do conference calls without any app for up to 5 people. The students do not have to have the same kind of phone. So look and see what your phone can do. And if you want to go to the next slide, Amber. It can be very confusing as to what uses data on a cell phone and when. So here's a very short and simple cell phone primer. Mobile data is used to access the internet when you don't have Wi-Fi, like when you're at school or in your office or at home. So if a student doesn't have Wi-Fi at home, their cell phone will need to use data for things other than talking or texting. That means if they do email, access the internet, or use an app like WhatsApp, Remind, or YouTube, they will be using data. If they have unlimited data plans, it isn't a problem, but not all people have that. You'll have to ask your students to find out. Now let's look at what we can do for students that have low tech access, like a smartphone, and they have some kind of data plan. Some cell phone providers right now are actually offering no limits on data or texting or minutes, so that's something that the students can check on too. Smartphones with data adds another layer of technology that makes it easier to deliver lessons. For example, instructors and students can send text messages with links to YouTube videos, photos, or other resources for lessons. We're going to show you 2 different examples of lessons that you can do just with texting and links. Emails with assignments for your students to do should be directly in the body of the email, so it's easier to view on a small cell phone screen. Don't use attachments to the email because it's not easy to manage on a cell phone. A smartphone gives you the ability to connect with students with apps like WhatsApp, Google Voice, Remind, but we recommend not using more than 2 different ways or apps for communicating with students to begin with. And then there's the apps for learning, like YouTube, Learning Upgrade, and Khan Academy that can be linked to a lesson that's sent by text or email. And then another way that a lot of people are using now to bring distance learning to their students who have only smartphones is to use Zoom. Many instructors have learned how to use it and are connecting with students and delivering instruction with Zoom meetings. We're going to hear from one instructor in a few minutes on how she learned to use the platform and reach her students on their cell phones. You want to go to the next slide? So what ideas do you have for working with low-tech, no-tech students? We invite you to share your ideas and experiences on the No-Tech, Low-Tech discussion board on the Excellence in Adult Ed website. You can find it by clicking on the discussion board tab on the homepage of the website.
As we continue to explore low-tech options for your students, something that many of teachers have started to do is what I'll call a text lesson, meaning these are a sequence of texts sent to students. I have 2 examples for you. This example math text lesson is a series of texts focused on 2D and 3D shapes specific to math. If you don't teach math or don't think you'd use this specific lesson, think about what content you could do in this same type of template or format. For instance, the first text you send one day could be something like, "Good morning. For today's lesson, I'd like you to find 2 examples of a cube, cone, sphere, cylinder, and rectangular prism in your home." Obviously, you wouldn't ask for these things unless you had previously covered this material in either another text lesson or maybe in your class before the closure. The second text could be something like, "Text each example to me using picture or words, for example," and then listing the example for students that might need clarification. Another text could be something like, "Answer these questions. What 2D shapes, flat shapes, is a cube made of? What about a cone? This provides interactive question and answer between you, the instructor, and the student. Also, a vocabulary review. Notice that there's a picture of a cube for text 4, so maybe you want to remind students what a cube looks like when you ask this particular vocabulary question. Always remind them to have fun, and of course, reach out to you if you have questions. This is a very simple text lesson, and while not all of your students might reply, even just having one student interacting with you, you know that you're serving at least one student in your class. This also only requires texting. So if a student doesn't have a smartphone or data plan, you could text them these questions and still get replies, if nothing else than in words. And that is good enough for that student. Another option for an example lesson, this one focused on ESL content, would be to include links to material that you want the students to complete or view online. So you can see in this example that the first text still says, "Good morning. For today's lesson, I'd like you to spend 30 minutes on your pronunciation of the TH sound in English. So first, watch these videos." The link is right there in the text, and if they have a data plan and are able to watch videos, they can easily click the link and watch the videos. You can ask for a reply, or you could simply, maybe an hour later, send text number 2. Then challenge your listening by taking this online TH sound listening quiz. Here's another link. And then finally, take this online quiz with the TH pronunciation. Have fun and let me know if you have any questions. You can see how both text lessons are similar in their setup, but one allows for simple texting of words back and forth and possibly pictures, while the other broadens the resources that you can use, including things like YouTube, quizzes, Quizlets, Kahoot, all of those different resources we mentioned before. This is just one way that you can text with students in order to get them the content that they are wanting and that you are needing to get to them. We have already covered in other webinars some of the tools that Laura and I have mentioned throughout this webinar in previous webinars. Things like Remind, Google Voice, Zoom, iPathways, ReadWorks. These webinars are archived and available on our Excellence in Adult Ed website. So if you have specific questions or you'd like to know more about one of those topics, we encourage you to visit this website and listen to one of the archived webinars. Whether you're using a no-tech option like a phone call or a low-tech option like texting or emails, we have a few tips for you. First, keep the lesson short but meaningful. This isn't the time to necessarily offer enrichment activities, but rather very targeted objectives for students to practice and feel like this is valuable learning for them, even if it's just on their cell phone. We encourage you to have either an agenda or a very specific routine so that students know what to expect. Students that have low tech abilities need a very structured routine. So if you are always sending them a video to watch, then a quiz to take, and then a PDF to fill out, try and keep that routine the same so they get used to this idea of it's always a video, then a quiz, then a PDF. This will help them lower their anxiety about learning online and learning through their cell phone, and will also help you to keep organized. Also, give very clear instructions, preferably in one place or in one app. This allows a student to refer back to it. Even if you're giving a sequence of texts for students, they have their text record to be able to refer back to see what they're supposed to do. If you're using another source like Google Classroom or WhatsApp, they have something to look at while they're trying to do their schoolwork if it's multi-step. Remember that if they're using their cell phone, you can always use pictures to help explain. vocabulary or other concepts that are needed. You might even have to take screenshots from your own phone to help students get to the technology. You can have students use pictures to submit work. It might not be convenient for a student to mail you their particular written work, but if they could snap a picture of it and send it to you through text, you can work with that. Also, break text messages up to help organize the information. This goes along with having an agenda or a routine and giving clear instructions for students. As you navigate these waters of distance learning with low tech ability students or not much tech at all ability students, we encourage you to be open-minded and know that it's not going to be the same as in person. It will be different, but that doesn't mean it can't be great. We're going to hear from a few teachers who have just now started doing some of this low tech or no tech with their students, and you'll get to hear some of the experiences that a few teachers in adult education have faced with their students. So first up is Anita Armstrong Tunkt. She is from Elgin Community College, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about how she started with her distance learning plan and her students.
Hi everyone. Yes, my name is Anita Armstrong Tunkt and I teach ESL basic literacy. I started with a student on WhatsApp and we decided to use her phone because her internet connection was so bad, and it actually worked out very well and I was very surprised. In the first lesson, we set up a time and a date, so we got the schedule sorted out straight away. Yes, the great thing about WhatsApp, if I can just go through one or two things, it's very simple, it's very easy to use, it's real-time messaging, you can send videos and photos instantly, there are free calls, everything is free, and it's international, so it's very, very popular with some of our students. So as I said, in the first lesson, we set a schedule, and the student downloaded the app a couple of days before so she could get familiar with it. And that really set the boundaries. She knew exactly what we're going to do for that week. And I think it gave her some confidence. Let me see. So in the first lesson also, we were practicing the daily routine and present simple. So I modeled sentences on WhatsApp. I was able to use my computer and my phone simultaneously without any problem at all. So I wrote my 10 sentences of my daily routine and the student read them, and we practiced some pronunciation. We looked at verbs. We were able to underline the verbs or highlight them. And then the student typed in her daily routine using my teacher model. And I gave her enough time to do this. And then after that, I called her and I read her daily routine to her, and we were able to practice the pronunciation. For homework, I actually made a video of her daily routine, or rather a sound recording, and I sent it to her with the instructions that she should listen to it sentence by sentence and practice that way as many times as she wanted. And then the next lesson, she would actually read it all to me. And I was very surprised. It was very successful. We were able to get a lot done. And the advice I would give to a student is don't worry. Please don't worry. Even if you're very low tech, if you have a phone, we can reach you. It does not work very well for more than one student. But if you just have a single student, you can give a great individual lesson. And I was very heartened by this.
Thank you so much, Anita. I just want to mention that Anita has now moved to using Zoom with just a few of her students. So you can see that even in this short time, she started with one student on one app and now has progressed to something new. And that might be you too, and that's okay. Be flexible. Thank you so much for joining us, Anita. We're going to start talking to another instructor who has really done a lot with her students and learned a lot herself about how to use this communication and these tools for at-a-distance learning. Julie, are you there to share with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Julie Anderson. I'm from the College of Lake County. And when I discovered that we were suddenly going to be going online with our teaching, I thought, oh my goodness, I really have to evaluate what my students have and don't have, and what ways I was going to be able to reach those students. So I realized that I had some students that basically had no tech. They had phones and that was it. So the challenges with that were that I needed to leave messages in Spanish because the vast majority of my students speak Spanish. My Spanish is not very good, so I needed to deal with that. Even though we have information about students' numbers, many times those numbers are incorrect. Students may have changed phone numbers. I was a little concerned that I wasn't going to be able to reach those students. And also, if a student sees a phone number that is not a familiar one, they might not listen to a message. Then I realized that I had a lot of students that did have phones, but that was about it. They may use a few apps. I know many students use Facebook, but I realized that there were challenges related to that. First of all, I want to keep my personal number private, and then texting in Spanish has kind of been a challenge for me. And then also, will the student read the text? So I'll talk a little bit about how I addressed the first two challenges with low tech. I decided to use Google Voice, which was one of the best decisions I've made in a long time, because you can use Google Voice. Oh, if we could go back to the slide before that for just a minute. Using Google Voice, you can type in your messages on your phone and handle all of your phone calls and texts and everything. I'm sorry, with your computer. So it really helped me so much because I'm a low tech person. So that was a very great thing. But then I realized for all of my students, I could use US mail. So, you know, obviously there might be incorrect addresses and again, translating information, but I did send snail mail to all of my students. So then, realizing that, then once I had identified those things, if we could go to the next slide, I made some decisions. I decided that because I only had one student that only had a phone, did not have any other access besides voice, that I would be able to work with her on her worksheets that I had mailed, and then she has a workbook at home. So that has actually worked out very well. I meet with her after I have met with my other students online for each class, and I think she is actually really benefiting from the one-on-one work. With my students who have more technology skills, I have been using Zoom. I have provided instructions in Spanish for phone use, and students are working together when they are online, helping each other with various things like using chat, muting and unmuting themselves, and using video and turning off video and things like that. I am also mailing them some materials because I wanted to continue to provide the same types of activities and routine that I had been using face-to-face with my students. So next, we're going to talk about some of my findings. I have taught about 7 classes at this point, and obviously patience and flexibility are 2 things that are required of all of us, both the participants and the teacher. It takes much more time to do all of the activities and communicate via the online platform than in person. I have also developed a cheat sheet, and it has basic information about setting up a video on Zoom. It has information about what students need to do. Zoom is very, very user-friendly. And then I also have in-meeting menu words in English and Spanish, which has been helpful. Again, realizing technology is evolving. It seems like almost every day we are getting information from our CLC tech team about security issues related to online practices and protecting your password and many different technical things, but so far it's been working great. I have allowed my students time to practice the skills that are needed to use the platform, and because most of them have Facebook, they know how to chat, so it's actually very helpful. One thing to remember is that their user language is Spanish, so that in some cases has kind of been a challenge, but overall it's been very successful. And students love being engaged again. They are so happy to see each other, so happy to be learning and getting back into some kind of routine in this very unusual time that we're living in. So next, I do have some advice. As you can see in the blue box, I found a wonderful resource. It's called Reverso. It is a free program, a website. You can type in your message in any language, and you can choose a language to have it translated into. One of the things that I really like about this is that in the translation, a box pops up underneath the translation, so you can compare the usage of your message to make sure that your message is being translated in a very comparable way. So unlike some things like Google Translate, you have no idea sometimes if things are being translated in the best way. I know enough Spanish to know some things that don't translate correctly, but this has been very helpful. I also have a student who speaks Russian, so it's very nice to be able to instantly have a message translated. And then I copy and paste that in my Google Voice text that goes out to students, so it's a great time saver. The next point of advice is really to provide very simple in-app instructions. Touch chat box, touch leave meeting, and it really does help. Also, when I discovered we needed to make the switch, I immediately contacted some colleagues and said, we have to practice, we have to ask each other questions, we have to ask for feedback. We actually contacted a few students that agreed to work with us. I used the computer. I tried accessing Zoom and using Zoom on my phone so that I would know what students were experiencing, because about 98% of my students are using phones. We have a wonderful tech team at CLC. I'd like to give them a shout out. They just worked above and beyond the call of duty to help us all. And then to relieve stress, again, use those translation tools, use Google Voice, and of course, maintain a positive attitude. I decided that this was my push to enter the 21st century. I probably would not have chosen to do this on my own, but it has been amazing. And again, because my students are so positive about it, that just makes me want to learn more and more. So jump in with both feet. You can do it. And I would be happy to answer any questions or practice with anyone who would like to learn more about Zoom.
Thank you so much, Julie. This was such a powerful presentation that you did about your learning experience, but also with your own students' learning experience and kind of the journey you've taken in only 7 classes so far. For the rest of the audience out there, we want to offer you one more teacher's experience. This picture is of Erin Vobornik from Elgin Community College, and she regrets that she can't be live with you today, but you see that little baby in her arms? She has 2 little ones at home and was not quite sure she could have a completely quiet background. So she asked if I would present her material for you, and I wish that I could I just hope that I can do it justice today. Erin Vobornik teaches at Elgin Community College, and in my conversation with her, I learned that her students had very little to no tech experience in the classroom before the closure. So she actually described that the only thing she had really ever done in the classroom was try to do a Quizlet or a Kahoot lesson, and it took her, like she said, almost an hour just to get everybody on with their cell phones. And some of you have probably been in that same position and understand her frustration. So when she found out she needed to go to distance learning, she was really hesitant about how to do this. She described how she initially contacted her students through email, text, and WhatsApp. She said she hit them with multiple things to try and get them to come back to class. All of our presenters today, as well as some of our PDN staff, have expressed that not every student is coming back to class. We expect that. We know they have a lot going on in their life right now, and learning English or learning for their HSE exam might not be on the top 3 priority list. And that's okay, but we want to assist those students that are there. So she contacted students through email, texting, and she also used the WhatsApp app. And what she did was guide them in their native language to her Google site. As of today, she's maybe 7 or so lessons in, and she has 80% of her students on her Google site participating in her lessons. I want to take you to her Google site and also share it with you. She said that you are free to peruse it, watch everything, and even contact her. So please take down that link, rebrand.ly/Aaron's-level1. And again, a PDF of these slides will be available on the Excellence site, so you'll have access to this if you lose it. Let me show you what her site looks like. Just a second. I am modeling right now for you what it looks like when you do not put a live hyperlink into your slides. Here we go. So please bear with me. Okay. This is what Aaron's Level 1 site looks like. This is not a Google Classroom. This is a Google site. So it is just a website. Erin specifically did not want her students to have to log into anything or create an account in order to learn. She has very low literacy and low tech students, so she wanted it to be easy. So through texting and the WhatsApp, she gave a link to her website, And you can see that the website is very simple. There's not a lot here. There are dates, which most students can navigate through. And then on each date, she has different material. So for instance, on March 30th, she has objectives, a video update. Notice she even has the transcript available in English, Spanish, and Ukrainian because she knew that that was something her students would need in order to navigate this website. You can see the different languages here. She did say that it probably took her between 2 and 3 hours to get the site set up. But then when she wanted to create her own videos, and that took some time. But to get the Google site just set up, it only took a few hours. There's a video here about the class update describing how to navigate the website. And then some of her content. What is an adjective? Describing family qualities. Here are the 3 things I want you to do. And then she also put the directions in the native languages so that her students could access the content. She knew that the technology and the language barrier would still exist online. So she needed to help that barrier in order to get students to the specific content. You can see that there's some YouTube videos here, and even a photo project where she has students watch a video, write 3 sentences, send her the picture of her 3 sentences by such and such date. Again, a very simple way to get content to low tech or low literacy students. She even has an example here and further directions for her students and homework. You can see that this is all on one page, so all a student has to do is continue to scroll. And there's really only one other option up here, and it's go home or contact me. This is where I said you could contact Erin. She'd be happy to help you figure out a Google site. You can see that she has all the different dates, and if you want to peruse this on your own, you can see how her teaching has evolved based on what her students are responding back and forth with her on. Now, I wanted to, it'll take my screen just a second to catch up. I wanted to share with you this idea of making a Google site. Making a web page might seem intimidating to most people, but as with many Google apps, they try and make it one of the most user-friendly softwares that I think is just available. Google Sites is free. Now, you yourself need to have a Google account in order to make a Google site, and they are also free if you don't already have a Google site. But your students do not have to have an account to access a website. It's just a website. It's a place to store information. This might be an alternative to Google Classroom if you don't think your students will be able to navigate Google Classroom or another LMS. That might be more complicated. LMS stands for Learning Management System. Here you can see, once I logged in with my Google account, this was the very first page that showed up. You can already see how easy it is in that over here on the right-hand side, you can see, do I want a text box? Do I want an image? Embed would be if you wanted to embed those video links, that's where you would do it. And if you're familiar with Google, you can pull anything from your drive and put it right on your site. This is literally a drag and drop. I want a text box to go here. I want a video to go here. I want a picture to go here. They even have layouts available further on down in the bottom right-hand corner. So this is the way that you would get started with creating your own Google site. And this is what Erin has done. Like I said before, she has done an amazing job of getting her students online and even has 80% of her students on her Google site actively participating and getting them the learning that they need and want right now. You might not have the same success rate, but we don't want that to deter you. As Anita said in her presentation, sometimes just getting one student is enough to push you forward and keep going. As we navigate this low-tech, no-tech students and this distance learning in general, serving these low-tech and no-tech students is using universal design for learning. If you're familiar with that teaching methodology, at its core, it's about getting students access or developing lessons for a variety of students' tech access using the research-based principles of UDL. Those three basic principles are engagement, representation, and action and expression. It's a way about thinking about teaching and learning that helps give all students an equal opportunity to succeed. This approach offers flexibility in the ways students access material, engage with it, and show what they know. This whole webinar has been a learning experience for you to learn how to get students access to material, engage with it, and show what they know. And we really hope that you know that this isn't just doing the bare minimum. This is doing the work of being a teacher, and it is best practice, especially with universal design for learning.
Julie, did you want to make a few more comments while we watch the dog jump in? You were the one who told us to jump in.
Sure. I just wanted to say that in face-to-face teaching, I use many different resources and actually have my students become very involved with, large and small muscle group movement and conversations and things. So I have been able to, through the share screen function of Zoom, use textbook, use our online resources that come along with our textbook, PDFs, Word documents. Today, we actually played bingo. I had my students make their own bingo cards to review words. And I had the bingo words, and we had a fantastic time. So I've shown YouTube videos, videos that are embedded in our textbook supplied flash drive that I've been using. So I just wanted to let instructors know that everything that I have tried in the classroom as far as technology has worked wonderfully. And again, I've been very surprised that I've been able to do it.
Thank you so much, Julie, for adding that. And it is time for instructors to jump in and connect with as many students that they can, whether they're low tech or no tech. And just try one thing at first and see what works, and then go from there. Anita had a lot of success just starting with a phone call. Julie evaluated what her students had and made a plan to reach her students. She used phones, snail mail, and then she learned how to use Zoom, and she's had much success with that. So we encourage you to get started if you haven't already. Erin developed a website using Google Site, and she kept it very simple. You don't have to have this full out distance learning class that, maybe some instructors that have been doing distance learning for years might have. Just start small and start with something that you know, go from there, connect with other teachers and coach each other. If you want a coach or a mentor from the PDM, we have that opportunity now as well. In the past couple of weeks, the PDN has provided webinars on connecting with students, and let's take a look at where those are on the website. We've done webinars on using Zoom, on using apps for connecting with students, delivering instruction with online resources like USA Learns, ReadWorks, Common Lit. If you haven't seen these webinars, we invite you to look at them and go out to the Excellence in Adult Ed website and click on resources. You'll see a list of webinars. We have a top 10 resources list, like Amber had said at the beginning. We've got discussion boards where you can share things that you're doing. A links resource list for more places to look for ideas on digital and virtual instruction. And then there's also publisher information, different suggested software that can be used. So we hope that you check these out. And then if you need information on special learning needs, there is a page on the website for special learning needs. There is a blog that is updated on a regular basis, so you can check that out. And there's also, we have two people that are specialized in special learning needs, Sarah Goldammer and Bevan Gibson. Their emails are on the screen, and you can contact them. So we are pretty much at the end of our presentation. I want to thank everyone for attending. We hope that this has been another piece to your distance learning puzzle. It may not be the last piece, but keep going, keep learning, and keep trying different things, and you will find success. You will. The teachers that we heard from today, when they started teaching this semester, they were face-to-face teachers. They did not set out to become distance learning teachers, but they have learned things. They have practiced with other teachers, and they are doing it. And I think that all of you can too. There's plenty of resources for you to reach out to get help. All attendees from today's webinar will receive a certificate for 1 hour of professional development. If you do not receive your certificate by April 10th, please contact the Illinois Adult Ed PDN, and we will be posting a recording of this webinar on that Excellence in Adult Ed website. So you can, suggest this to friends, to fellow teachers, or go back and look at it on your own. Now, we do have a little bit of time left. Are there any questions that we can answer before we end our time here together? Not seeing any in the question box. Amber, if there's anything else that you want to add, otherwise I think we are done.
I think that I will just say that many people are saying, can I get the link? Can I get the PDF? If you go to the Excellence in Adult Ed website, you will, under the webinars section, you will see an archived recording of this webinar as well as PDF slides. Also, I have any other game ideas other than bingo. If you're looking for games like Kahoot or Quizlet are the two that come up to mind right off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are many, many other games. This might be a place where you could ask that question right on the discussion board. Yeah, Mandy, I love your idea. She says, I'd love a bank of 30-minute text lessons. If there isn't one, could we get one? I think that's a great idea to put on the discussion board of things that people are using. I'm sure that some of the people that shared today, as well as some of the other instructors we have on there, would be totally willing to contribute to that. That would be so helpful for other instructors to see. Moises, thank you for saying you're going to dive in. Thank you. Let's see. How do you use... If we recommend this webinar to coworkers, will they receive a certificate too? Maria, if you recommend this certificate and they would like a certificate of PD, they can feel free to email us and we can help them get that. Where on the website? Woo. Where on the website? What does that say? Someone help me if you see it, because I lost the question.
Yeah, they're moving pretty fast.
She was asking where to find the handout of the Zoom cheat sheet, and the answer is that it can be downloaded right from over in the dashboard right now. They can find it there, but maybe we could include that also.
We can include that
on the
on the Excellence website with the webinar.
Yep. I love that you had other teachers. Thanks very much.
There's a question from Judy, and Judy, I talked with you, Judith, I talked with you on the phone yesterday. If you're on Zoom with your students, can you have an app like ReadWorks open? You can, and ReadWorks actually isn't an app. I just want to clarify that because it's a website, and you can definitely share your screen to the ReadWorks website, and then you can show a reading passage to your students, and you can teach directly from there. ReadWorks is designed to do that, as well as to assign other reading passages for students to do on their own. So I would definitely recommend trying that.
Yes, and how do you keep your address private when sending snail mail? I know that it's usually not advised that you put your full ad, or that you don't put anything in the upper left corner, right? But I have gotten away with putting my last name and just the city that I live in. So for that person who is looking for keeping their address private when sending snail mail, or you could list your college's or your organization's address. That way that you're not sharing your address with students. So that would be another alternative to think about. The other thing that I wanted to mention that we didn't get a chance to talk about is if you feel comfortable and the student feels comfortable, if you're trying to exchange snail mail and you don't want to have to worry about getting to the post office during this time or exposing yourself to those germs or exposing your students, you could work out a drop-off or pickup situation, maybe at a local library or at, leave it on the picnic table in front of the library type of thing. But that would be entirely up to you and, of course, not required. But if you really are trying to reach that student and get that work back, I also see another question about how do others record or check work. This is something that I'm actually, Anita Kerr, if you're on, can you speak to how you're doing this currently with your students so that they can get a picture of what that might look like?
Yeah, can you repeat the question so we can start from the beginning?
Absolutely. She said, how do others record or check work or track attendance?
Yeah, so we want to be careful about the tracking attendance because your institution, your personal program will have made a plan with you about how you are logging attendance. So you definitely need to follow that program plan that you've been given. But certainly it depends on how you're doing this within the app. Some people are literally saying, if I'm on a Zoom meeting or I'm on a phone call with my students, they are keeping track of the number of minutes, and they're keeping that on a spreadsheet or a log of some kind. If students are submitting work, teachers can assign a certain number of minutes that each lesson or assignment will be worth. And when it is completed, that amount of time is then assigned to that. I would strongly recommend some sort of basic chart or spreadsheet or log for each class that you have where you're keeping track of that. And that is something that all teachers will be figuring this out as we go, for sure, in this new world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing on the spot. I appreciate that. Anita and Lori are both in the field right now doing exactly what you're doing, as well as some of our panelists. So they have experience doing that. Julie says she has.
Amber, I'm sorry. Amber, another thing that I wanted to just chime in on, Kathy Rouge had said there's a good YouTube video on how to load Zoom, and she's absolutely correct. If you want to get more practice or you need to learn something more on Zoom, just type in your browser what it is you're trying to do, and you'll get a whole list of YouTube videos. Some of them are on Zoom. Zoom has an excellent support site with lots of tutorials to watch. And also next week, there will be one more Zoom training session for teachers that will be sent out. The notice of that will be sent out in the next day or so. There have been trainings on Zoom this week also, and those will be, the recording will be posted on the Excellence website as well. So lots of resources available for getting you up to speed on Zoom.
Yeah, it looks like there's one more question here. Julie, well, I'll say two things. Julie is typing in the chat right now, which I know that not all of you can see, is that she has students hold up homework to their phone or computer camera to log in their homework through Zoom. They predicted time for homework or work she's addressing online. And then another question that somebody asked was, thank you so much for the PD. Do you know any extra resources we can use with students for quizzes? And how can we check the work through Google Classroom? So that's kind of a twofold question. Google Forms is a great way to do quizzes for students. That's one way to do them. There are many other resources for how to do quizzes. You can use surveying different websites. Actually, my kindergartner just did a Google form this morning for one of her quizzes. So they're pretty user-friendly, much like the Google site. And especially if you're using Google Classroom, that's the resource I would use to address that. Also, people are putting in the chat all these great ideas that Burlington English has a setting to track attendance. So if that's a resource you're using, we also just want to mention that there is another layer of work to this, right? But think about the things that you aren't doing right now, such as maybe commuting to your in-class session, or staying after class to working with students, or prepping at home before you go to class. That time is now spent figuring out how to contact your students, putting information on your Google site. We realize this can seem overwhelming, and we encourage you to jump in, but maybe jump in with a little bit of a lifeguard or a life vest on to help you and assist you. And as Julie Anderson earlier said, use the tools that are available in distance learning. That's the benefit of it. And that's the benefit of all of those tools. So we really appreciate all of you attending today. And if you have further questions, please feel free to email us. Our email is iledpdn@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry, that is incorrect. No, that's correct. @gmail.com. I said that right. It's the end of the webinar. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we hope that you have a wonderful day in this warm weather. Thank you, and be well.